welcome back to the show, Tales from Antiquity and the Modern Age. With pragmatic perfection, I'm your host, Austin, and I got another tale from Aesop for you. This one, I believe, is quite famous, The Ants and the Grasshopper. You may have heard of it before, maybe you haven't. Either way, I'm sure you're going to get a lot out of it, so let's get right into the storytelling. The Ants and the Grasshopper. The ants were spending a fine winter's day drying grain collected in the summertime. A grasshopper, perishing with famine, passed by and earnestly begged for a little food. The ants inquired of him, "Why did you not treasure up food during the summer?" He replied, "I had not leisure enough. I passed the days by in singing." Then they said together in derision, "If you were foolish enough to sing all the summer, you must dance supperless to bed in the winter." The end. Well, I can say there's a lot going on in this story here, and we're going to unpackage it right now. You know, I'm reminded a little bit of an example from history. The American, not founding, I should say, but the American colonization. When England started to send ships over to colonize this new world, there was one in particular, settlement, Jamestown, I'm sure you know, and there was this guy, John Smith. Now, when they were first getting started off, they were coming over here, and John Smith, he was kind of a hot-headed guy, but he was a pretty good leader. And he had a tough time because he had all these aristocrat guys coming over who thought they were going to just make a ton of money off this new world. I believe one quote is, they believed they could just stroll down the street and pick gold off the beach. Now, obviously, America is very rich in natural resources, but that is not the case. One of the things that he had to implement, a policy to survive in this new world, was he needed everyone to get working. And these aristocrat guys who thought they were just going to make so much money and hardly have to do any work, they didn't want to work. And that's probably due to their very easy, well-off upbringing, not having to work a lot for what they had in life. But he implemented this famous policy of he who shall not work shall not eat. This obviously is directly applied in this ants and the grasshopper story. Grasshopper, he didn't work. He played away the summer. He was singing, he was dancing, he was having a good time. But now the reality has come to face him right straight on in the face, and he doesn't have any food. So what does he do? He has to go. He's got to go beg for food. Now, I could say there's one thing before I go on with the tale of the grasshoppers. I'd like to point out the ants, if you notice in the beginning of the story, are still working. They're extremely hardworking. They worked hard all summer, but they're still working here in the winter, taking their resources and their supplies, drying it out. So even though they're in this time when technically they could kick back, call it easy, they're still putting in the effort. Now, this makes me think that in Christian scriptures, the Bible, ants are often used as an example of persistence and hard work, and almost really an ideal to look up to. Several times often in the Psalms and Proverbs books, which is a lot of the life wisdom books in the Bible, if you can call it that. But now we're back to the situation where the grasshopper is asking these ants for the food, and they basically tell him, no, screw off. You didn't do anything. You don't deserve any of it. Now, some people might say, boy, that's a little harsh, man. You know, he's dying. Well, you know, think about it. He hasn't done anything. And I would say it's almost immoral for the ants to be made to suffer for the negligence of this grasshopper. Now, I mean, if they have surplus and they feel so inclined, they're more than welcome to share that with them. But this story doesn't mention anything about a surplus, and maybe the ants just have enough for themselves. So is it right for them to sacrifice the wants and needs of their own people for someone they don't even know, they don't have any connection to, they have no responsibility for? I mean, you got to take care of your own first. Some may call it harsh and uncaring. I just call it you're caring for those who care about you. So, I mean, really, it's as I think about it, the story is almost you could say it's a little bit of a look at what communism is, because communism would tell you, nah, it's got to be all equal. That someone has got to be set up and take that grain from the ants and distribute it evenly so that all may have enough to survive. Here's the thing, though. If the ants have worked so hard to get all this grain piled up, enough for them, if they're going to have to work so hard, but then it gets taken away from them, they're not going to want to work so hard anymore. Because for all their effort, they're getting the fruits of their labor taken away. Think about it this way, too. You know, we have a wide spread of the wealthy and the poor here in America. But if you take that in relation in context to the rest of the world, let's take maybe like a quote unquote a poor person here in America and compare them to some average individual in the backwoods area of Africa. Well, that poor person here in America, quote unquote, is filthy rich compared to the backwoods individual from Africa. So in the greater scheme and context of things, this poor person is still way so much better off than that individual in Africa. So if we were to apply communism in this, we could say, hey, we're going to take half your stuff from this poor person here in America, and we're going to distribute it to maybe 10 people in Africa. Now, that may seem fair to the people in Africa, but what about this poor person? I mean, it's not right. You know, taking their stuff. You know, they've worked for it, or they've been gifted it. You know, however they've attained it, unless it was ill-gotten gains, it's theirs. And I am solidly a believer in the right of private property. If it's yours, you own it, and there shouldn't be any infringement on that right. So, boy, I really went off on that one. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this story. I think it's got a lot of deep kind of implications that you can think about, you can talk about. Keep this story around. It's maybe a good conversational starter when you're with friends and family. See what they think about the whole situation. Anyway, as far as the technical notes of the show, I failed to mention last time, even though I did say that I'm in a new studio. One of the things about this new studio is I'm no longer recording with my 2015 MacBook Air. I am now using my desktop PC, which I had wanted to use for a long time, or not a long time, in relation to how long I've been doing this show. But what was holding me back is, even though it's quiet, it obviously makes a lot more fan noise than my laptop does, which is absolutely silent, which is why I used it. But now that I've done a whole bunch of renovating and moving around the furniture, my PC is nearby, but it's not right next to the mic, so it's very quiet where I'm working. But yet I still have access to use that PC. So that's one thing, and I love it because it's my workhorse. I mean, it's custom built design. It's great. It's got all the power in the world that I need for editing, and it will even allow me to start using more beefy programs, like I'd mentioned, me wanting to start incorporating Adobe Audition as the DAW of choice for the show. Also, I had to update my version of Windows the other day to, I think, version 18.03 or whatever it's called. And I noticed one of the changes today was the previously called button that would turn off notifications so that you don't have distractions coming up. It's now called something else. It's called focus mode. Now, I really like that. I think whoever thought that was the way to go really understands how things work, and yeah, I full-heartedly support that. You know, it's a minor change, but it definitely has the implications that, hey, this is the focus work mode, and when you turn this on, you are in the mode, in the zone to get stuff done, and which is exactly what I'm trying to do right now. A small but I think significant change. So good on you, Windows. Well, with that, I'm brought to the end of this episode. I just want to thank you all for tuning in here with me today. Appreciate you spending a little bit of your precious time with me. I greatly appreciate it. And I just want to thank you. And I'll just tell you this, that we got more stuff coming up. I'm going to try to always improve the show quality. And that is my own journey to always be working like the ants. I'm not playing. You got to work before you can play hard. I could be working on other things in my brand, like I was thinking, should I get an Instagram put up? And that's on the list. But there's got to have priorities. You got to get that grain harvest. So there's things that I've got to do that are more important, but we'll get to it eventually. Anyway, thank you all for listening, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next episode. Take care.